Yo, what is up guys? It is Samool back again with another Epic 7 video for you guys today. Today we have another patch preview for you guys, which is going to be coming out on the 9th of June. And as you see that there are going to be a lot of units being changed in this balance update. And I think a lot of these changes are going to be cool. I think compared to a lot of the previous balance updates, that this one has a lot of unique changes and a lot more units will become more meta as a result of these changes. I think Smilegate's doing a really good job of actually changing units to fit the current meta and fit a certain niche so that those units can actually be playable in certain situations. So you're going to see we have one Moonlight 5-star being changed, which is DJ Basar, Desert Jewel Basar. Basically, this unit has been pretty bad for the longest time. We also have 3 5-star RGB units. Haste, Shu, and Valencia also have been pretty meh for a pretty long period of time. And one of the worst ML 4-stars in the game, Wanderer's Silk. We also have some 3-star units being changed in Montmorancy and Ross, as well as their specialty change additions. We also have some artifacts being touched on as well. Getting started, let's just talk about DJ Basar right away. So what did DJ Basar do in the current meta? He was mostly used as just like a cleanser, as a counter initiator, but there's a lot better options than him in the current meta. Like, you might as well just use Amelia instead, right? Amelia has a cleanse, CR push, and has way more healing. DJ Basar has pretty meh healing and his cooldowns are way too long. He basically took one turn and was useless. So what is being changed? Basically, they're changing his S1 so that not only does it have a single target chance to stun, but will also heal the health of every ally on your team. Very, very good, because like I said, in the past, he really struggled with healing his team. After he S3'd and countered with his cleanse, he was pretty much useless. But now with his S1 being able to heal, it's really, really nice. And you're going to see that the heal will scale with the target's max HP and the caster's attack, which is making it so that they kind of want him to be built on a more of attack build, but honestly, I don't think you'll ever really build attack on him that much. Next, we have his S2. It is completely reworked. So I kind of like what Smilegate did here. I think in the past, they tried to fix bad skills by adding like a lot of bonus effects, which makes it super OP. But now they just decided to completely rework with his S2, which I'm a huge fan of. Before, it was just that all allies would get healed after he used a skill. But now they basically just removed that, because keep in mind, his S1 is going to be AoE healing now. And his S2 will actually inflict barrier inversion on all enemies and also put a decreased hit chance for 2 turns. So decreased hit chance is very, very strong, right? You know that it can stop like Fallen Cecilius from provoking you. It can stop like basically any DPS in the game from doing damage. And barrier inversion is a pretty unique effect in that it will invert barriers into damage. This means if Amelia S3s, the barrier she puts on her team will actually be doing damage to her team. Also means Hwayoung, right, who gets a barrier every turn. You don't get to decide if you want to turn it off or not, will be doing damage to herself every single turn. This is unaffected by effect resist and will only apply to heroes. Also keep in mind, when the target is granted a barrier, you'll get an extra turn for yourself, which is going to be very, very nice, because you're going to see his S3 has been changed. So the only thing that was changed here is that his immunity buff got nerfed from 3 turns to 2 turns, but keep in mind that his cooldown on the skill got reduced by 1 turn. So you're basically removing 1 turn of the immunity for 1 turn cooldown, and it's really, really worth, because you're going to see with his S2, he'll be able to cycle a lot more quicker, and you'll just be able to spam cleanse your debuffs from your team and increase CR of your team very, very quickly. Very, very nice, and a very, very powerful buff for him, in my opinion. I think DJ Basar will be pretty decent in the meta, right? Against units that have barriers, right? He's definitely going to be strong, because barrier inversion looks pretty nutty, and you just have to build him tanky enough so that you can actually survive, because the barrier damage will scale with whatever barriers they're getting from themselves or from their allies. So yeah. Next we have Haste. So yeah, everyone said Haste sucked. I actually talked about Haste in my last Purrple video. Said he basically was pretty trash. Yeah, Haste is very, very bad in the current state, but after the buffs on the 9th of June, he might actually be not that bad. Before, he just had a chance to bleed and steal a buff if you have a Earth Elemental hero on the enemy team as a target. But now, it's actually just going to be a chance to steal a buff. Pretty interesting. I don't think it's like a huge buff on his S1, because stealing a buff is cool, but it's also random still. Next, we also have his S3 being changed. So before, it was just a chance to inflict bleeding, and then when there were more 3 or less enemies, you dealt more damage. And at the end of the turn, you will detonate any bleeding effects on Earth elements It just was a weird skill for Haste, right? But now they change it so that it doesn't have to do anything with Earth Elemental units anymore. Basically strip 2 buffs before inflicting 2 bleeding effects, and if you crit, you have a chance to decrease defense for 2 turns. So very, very interesting, and you have to keep in mind that this does not trigger a counterattack, and they did buff the damage on this. I think he's going to be pretty decent in like cleave teams now in arena offense. You can use him as a opener to strip and land defense break, right? And he also will be doing a lot of damage, and in longer fights, if the the battle takes a few more turns, you can steal some defense buffs or whatever that is annoying your team, and you can cleave with him. Otherwise, I don't think he's going to be changed too much. I think these buffs were a step in the right direction, but nothing like too crazy. He could be a good opener as well because you can strip and then inflict 2 bleeding effects. His speed is not terrible, but the thing is, yeah, there's just a lot better opening units, and Haste is a fire unit, and Payra, one of the best openers in the game, is ice, so you got to keep that in mind. Next, we have Shu. So Shu was not in a good state because she required a lot of stats, and if you wanted to build her more damage heavy, you would sacrifice a lot of bulk because yeah, she needed a lot of crit damage to do a lot of damage, and a lot of that crit damage will be coming from her HP and defense. But now you're going to see that she has a buff on her S2 and her S1, I guess, because her soul burn did get changed. Her S1 soul burn will now give an extra turn, which is pretty interesting, and you're going to see that her S2 is now going to actually heal herself and do more penetration defense, which is very, very strong. You're also going to see that when your casters, when her focus is 5, you're going to increase your damage and reset the cooldown of this. Very strong. I think Shu's going to do a lot more damage now. The fact that she has more penetration on defense and sustain, which was a big weak point of her kit, she didn't have any sustain. I think she'll be a lot more tankier in a sense because you do have that HP being absorbed from that lifesteal, and also the more damage will make it so you can actually take a bit of the stats from crit damage and put it more into bulk. Also, we have our S3 being changed. Basically, when your S3 is on cooldown, you have a chance to counterattack, right? And it's only going to work when your allies get counterattacked, not when Shu does. So it's very, very strong because yeah, Shu's going to be more bulky now because you're going to invest more tankiness into her. And also when you counterattack, your S1 will also be CR pushing yourself. So you have to be very, very careful, and yeah, very, very strong. I think Shu's going to be a pretty decent unit. She's going to be kind of like a Rem kind of unit where she is kind of annoying to deal with because there's RNG. You might want to run her on counter set now because that way, no matter who they attack, she has a chance to counter. I don't know how strong she'll be in the current meta because there's a lot of earth units, and the fact that Rimuru is in the game just makes it so that ice bruisers are just, a lot weaker than they should be, so it's really hard to tell until we test her out. But I think this is definitely a good buff. I'm definitely going to try her out because I do love using Shu. Next, we have Valencia. So, Valencia, guys, one of my most favorite units in the game. I used her a long time ago when she first came out, when she was super strong. The thing is, she has a lot of problems in the current meta, right? So the biggest thing is that she is very easy to ignore, right? Because her mind eye would not proc once you hit her. And also, you can chip her down very slowly because she has no built-in sustain. So they're changing it so that her S1 will do more damage overall. And they're also changing her S2 to not be based off of her being attacked to get a mind's eye, her passive. She will just get it at the start of her turn, and when you use S1 now, you will still activate your S2 trample attack, but instead of decreasing the cooldown of your S3 when you attack, you're actually going to inflict injuries, and the injuries will scale with the damage you do. It's going to be very, very strong, and the mind's eye will also increase effectiveness even more, so the chance of your S3 landing will be even higher if you use your S3 during mind's eye. Now keep in mind her S3 is also changed to give her CR push, which is very, very nice. And I think it's going to be a very, very strong addition to her kit because, like I said, it was hard to build her because she required a lot of stats. And the fact that she actually doesn't need to be focused now, you can actually make it so that, she becomes a threat on the battlefield even if she's not being focused, is what I'm trying to get at. So in the past, you can just ignore her and not proc Mind's Eye at all, and she would do 0 damage because most of her damage came from her S2. But now if you ignore her, guys, she's going to be inflicting injuries over and over, and she just perma has Mind's Eye, and it's really, really annoying to deal with. And the biggest part of her buff, guys, I think is going to be her exclusive equipment, because since you don't need to be attacked to activate Mind's Eye now, they're removing that one and they're adding a exclusive equipment which will recover your HP when you use your S1, and the amount recovered increases to your max HP. Her S1 is going to be more damage as well. That means that you're actually going to be healing more and more. Like I said, she really struggled with sustaining herself, But now that she has a way to sustain with this exclusive equipment, which I think will be mandatory for her for PvP, I think she'll be a very, very strong option in the PvP meta because, yeah, she has injuries, she's going to do a lot of damage, and she also is very annoying with injury, like I said, injuries already, and she already has sustain built in now. So I think she's going to be very, very strong. I already have my Valencia like fully invested in. I just had her on the bench for more than a year. So I'm definitely going to test her out and probably showcase her in the near future so you guys can see. And then next we have one of the bigger changes I think for the meta, Wanderer Silk. So Wanderer Silk was only really used in Abyss Wars where you needed to CR push the enemy. But they're basically changing her to be a PvP unit. So I'm not going to talk about what her skills did in the past because there's a lot of changes. Let's just talk about what she does now. So her S1 will have a 50% chance to target for 2 turns. Pretty interesting, right? Target will increase the damage units will take. Her S2 is being changed to be a single target strip. And when you are buffed, which you should be most of the time because you're going to see your S3 gives her a barrier, you will trigger a dual attack from the attack with the highest attack, similar to Aros's S2. So it's going to be very annoying to deal with because keep in mind Wanderer's Silk, guys, is a ranger, so you can put her on miscon files, and that means that you can proc a defense break before this lands, before the dual attack happens, similar to Cerise does. Next we have her S3, which will be a single target attack that will inflict silence and decrease attack, right? And also will grant a barrier to herself for 2 turns and CR push that target by 100%. Very, very powerful. Keep in mind this barrier will be really nice to proc her S2 dual attack. And the decreased attack is really annoying, and the silence is also really annoying because it's a 2-turn debuff. And you also get CR pushed by 100%, so you're completely neutering a unit for 2 turns basically. And it's a full 2 turns because you're going to CR push them back by 100%. I think this makes it so that she'll be super, super strong because she can basically neuter a single unit very easily. She's very tanky with the barrier. If you build her tanky enough, she'll be very strong. And also, the fact that she does a lot of damage with that dual attack is going to be really, really annoying. And one of the biggest things, I think, is going to be at the very bottom here, right? Very hard to see because it's super small and people will skip over this. But you look at the imprint release. So before, it was a crit chance, which didn't matter because she didn't do any damage and, you know, you didn't really use her anywhere in PvP. So crit chance, you know, it's whatever. But now you have speed. Speed imprint is one of the strongest imprints in the game. So you can choose her with like a fast speed contesting team. You have that speed imprint, and imagine your team goes first with that speed imprint. They're just going to lose, right? Because you have your opener going, then you have your Wanderer Silk able to S2 right away or S3 right away if you wanted to, and then, you know, neuter an enemy. It's just really annoying to deal with. So I think this is going to be a very, very strong unit for cleaving and even as like a strong opening unit on her own, especially because of that speed imprint. Keep in mind that her exclusive equipment is being changed as well, but I think this one is not that significant. It's just going to be increased target effect chance of her S1. So going on, we have the 3-star units finally. So you're going to see that Montmorancy and Ross are being changed a bit. The sleep chance is going up on Montmorancy, nothing too crazy, but you know, it is annoying if it does land. And they're also changing it so that her S3 will dispel debuffs before healing, because if you had unhealable on yourself and you S3, you would actually not heal. It was really, really troll. So now you would just dispel before you heal now, so you actually get the heal in the case that you have unhealable on yourself. And also you have a effect that when you're attacked by an enemy that's not a boss, you're going to take less damage. So this works in PvP as well. So it's going to be making her more tanky in PvP. I think A Momo's like not that bad in PvP. She's like okay, especially for early game. So this will make her a lot stronger, just everything in general. Next we have Ross. He's just going to heal more with his S3. And also they're just changing the wording. Your S2, right, will now grant immunity to the ally with the highest attack except for the caster. Instead of to the caster and the ally with the highest attack. I don't know why they changed this. I still assume this will give himself immunity, right? To the caster and the ally with the highest attack except for the caster. So I think they changed it so that if Aros somehow had the most attack on your team, he would not give immunity buff to anyone. So I think that's why they changed it. I never really noticed it because I don't know why Aros would ever have the most attack on your team. They're also changing one of his runes, so instead of the HP being recovered when you S3 now, because it's already being buffed in the base skill, what's going to happen is that you're going to grant a barrier to the target in the back row if they suffer damage that is 30% or more of their max HP, and that barrier strength will scale with your own HP, and this can only work once per battle, but it's pretty nice because Aros is an HP stacking unit. Now we have the artifact changes. Last but not least, nothing too crazy though. I don't think any of these artifacts will be that strong even after these changes. You're gonna have basically time matter, having some of the damage be up front instead of having to kill an enemy first. It's still going to do the same overall damage overall. You're just getting flat damage increase until you kill something. Snow Crystal, changing effect resist to critical hit resistance. I think this is really nice because, you know, this can work pretty nicely on warriors that want to be more bulky. Effect resist doesn't really work on a lot of warriors, but crit hit resistance can work on everyone. But there's a lot of good warrior artifacts already. Even on Shu, whose artifact is Snow Crystal, Draco Plate is still very good. So hard to, you know, say that this is still worth it, but maybe it is. It's hard to say without testing it out. Then we have Eternus. They're just changing it so that the CR push goes from 6% to 7%, up to a max of 14%. And this will work at the end of an enemy's turn and can only be activated once per turn. Nothing too crazy, I think. Yeah, like I said, Soul Reaver artifacts, there's still a lot of really good ones, and Eternus does not help because why have something that pushes your CR when an ally's debuffed when you can have an artifact that just cleanses your ally, right? So yeah, I think these are really good changes for the game. I think nothing too crazy broken, but I think a lot of really weak units actually, right? Including like Wander's Silk, like Valencia, even DJ Basar, right? Are being buffed enough to the point where they'll be usable, but I don't think they'll be game-breakingly broken. So I think Smilegate did a very, very good job in these balance adjustment changes. And I'm really excited to see what actually happens for the future because I think Smilegate is taking a better step for balancing the game instead of just making everything super broken. So yeah, if you guys enjoyed this video, guys, I want to see more of these patch note reviews, make sure you leave a like and comment, and I'll see you guys next video. Peace.